everybody. My name is DeMello. I'm the gallery director for Brandon Salt Gallery. Brandon is one of the artists that I've been really excited to have here at Brandon Salt for a really long time, and I just wanted to show something that's kind of funny. Like the way this all started out was really just interesting thing Brandon sent in the mail. He hadn't, to my knowledge, we hadn't met, right? And he was having a thesis exhibition at San Diego State, and he had sent postcards with these in them, right? It was an envelope, and it started there. This thing had kicked around on my desk in the building, and I'll pass it around. You guys can look at it. It's a pretty interesting piece. But so without knowing Brandon, he had sent this, and then we kind of thought it was interesting, didn't know what to think of it. There was a QR code attached to a website with almost no name. What was the name of the website? We should mind
The Full Studio.
The Full Studio. So, which also doesn't exactly describe so much of you as an artist. So, he's been this character that we didn't really know how to kind of, or where it was going. And then we got a really great email from Jim Brown, Brandon Salt founder. He was teaching at San Diego State. He had a run-in with you in the hall or something, and your thesis exhibition was currently going. And then that email went to Isabel Dutra and myself, and we all decided to go and see your thesis exhibition. And we saw these works that included some of that material, right?
Yeah, yes.
And then there were a few different pieces in there that were just so incredible. There was a piece that had this space blanket material that was just so out on the periphery. It was almost, I don't want to say threshold, I don't know what to say. And the molding of one of the doorways was a folded piece of this space blanket material, just kind of in the periphery of a packed show, a thesis show. And that was my favorite piece in that exhibition. And we talked about it at that time, amongst other things, but it was really talking to you at that time, not so much all that collection of work for a thesis exhibition, it was really talking to you at that time that got me really more interested in you as an artist. And I think at that time told you about the residency, I'm not sure, but then you applied for the residency and then did a really incredible job doing the residency. You proposed this staircase that's over here during that time in your residency, which later came to fruition about a year later. I don't know how long it was.
And installed that piece up there.
You installed the piece, the wire piece upstairs, and then so on, and a really incredible piece that was at Quint in La Jolla via our Brandon Salt airspace. So just a really interesting chain of events of how we got to know you, and it was all through that simple postcard piece that you sent. So it's been a really interesting way of getting to know you as an artist, and I'm so blown away by this exhibition and the time that we spent here too installing, which was kind of hell a little bit at times.
It's awesome.
Yeah, so yeah, with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to you. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom, and thanks to Jim and Isabel for allowing me to put my work in the gallery. Michael also for helping me install it. My family, my mom's back here in the back. Thank you for filling in these front 3 rows. You know, I feel like initially maybe people were afraid to get in these because like you don't sit on the art, but they're meant to be used. I just want to start this off by saying like I'm in this like sort of preacher position here clearly by, you know, it's designed this way. I didn't necessarily intend to have an artist talk, but I keep feeling like I should be stepping to the side, not right in front of this congregation here. I kind of want to, if people haven't had an opportunity to walk around, I actually would prefer people to just mill about for a little bit. But prior to that, maybe like 5 or 10 minutes. Prior to that, I just have a couple brief statements about contemporary art as such, or not as such, as I perceive it. First and foremost in my mind is I've been through a lot of artist talks. I got an undergrad, I got an MFA, which means I'm part of the problem. And usually you get someone to come up, an artist to come up in front of a group, and they kind of tell you what their life and their work is about. Like, this is what I'm doing, this is how I do it, this is kind of what you're expected to take from it, as though it's a thesis, right? Like, and it can be captured in, you know, a couple pages, a couple paragraphs. And I think that there's been this slippage where art's become very intellectual, mainly because it's become very academic. And I feel like, for me, if your work needs the architecture of language in order for someone to have the impression that is correct, then it's probably not doing its job, because it should hit you with the impression that you're supposed to get instantaneously. And if it doesn't, then it wasn't the work for you, okay? With that being said, because you're here, I feel as though you're probably the target audience. You showed up. Maybe some of you because you're being nice to me. Others are actually genuinely interested, which is what I'm interested in. Why would you show up to this talk, right? What about what I can say will lend something to it that makes it more clear for you, right? And so, with that being said, I would prefer to respond to people's impressions. If you have something to say about it, if you have a question about it, like, throw it out here. It's the best way for me to start. My impressions of my own work are another thing entirely. Like, I almost destroy the work by telling you what my impression of it is. This is so installation based that I didn't know what I thought about it until it was done. I had to sit here in front of it for several days, and I've returned to it at least once a week since it's been installed, trying to understand what happened. It only existed in my brain, like, you know, for the months leading up to it, and it changed and is continuing to change as I perceive it. So if people wouldn't mind, like, standing up and walking around, that's the best way to actually experience this. I will caveat it with, I do see it as a loop that goes upstairs and comes back down around. That's as much as I can give you in terms of direction as far as experiencing the work. But if you'd like a couple minutes with it, let's say like 5 minutes, walk around and come back, and I'll be here to entertain whatever questions or observations you have. Thanks.
And we picked this kind of...
All right. I've clearly rearranged the seats here. I feel like this is a little bit better for the people way back behind the mezzanine level here. Anybody have anything? I could, yeah.
So I've been to a lot of the shows here at Brandon's Hall, and it was interesting for me to see this installation so big. So it's such a kind of a monolithic wall, and yet it's almost a study on red velvet drapery. And I was just wondering where that idea came from to make kind of a unit out of the space, rather than what many of the artists have done, which is, here's a painting this size, here's the next one this size, here's a different one this size, here's another one, and this is much more of a, to me, it's much more of a meditation on how to paint velvet. Where did the idea come from for this?
Okay, so what I'm hearing is two questions. So this distinct piece and this gesture, and the other one is the painting itself, the manner in which it's made, and the subject matter. Okay. Well, initially, when I was conceiving of the show, I had already made the piece up in this stairwell with the wires, and I had plans for this piece in the stairwell, the other stairwell that's red. And then when, you know, I was talking to Tom about different, I don't know, interventions that could be made, because I tend to think in terms of installation, because I like engaging with the architecture. As soon as they put this theater back in here, I was like, oh God, I got to put a hole in that wall. And I really wanted to use this material because this seems very tangential, but I've been working with this material for several years, taking photographs of it. And that experimentation is related to this. This is never meant to be installed here. Tom was the one that actually, during a studio visit, after I had come up with this piece, the other two stairwells, he's like, oh, this, I had already produced all these, and he said, these should be in the show. I don't know how, but it should go in the show. Because I was planning, I was really struggling with how to engage with these two walls here. And then after thinking about it a while, it was in keeping with what I was doing with color, and then the piece that's in the alcove over here, and it just seemed appropriate. And this gesture, this reflected gesture here of this kind of like, call it a church and a theater, this was ambiguous enough in relationship to those two environments that it felt appropriate, and it engaged with this wall usually where distinct works are placed. Like, you know, a bunch of paintings, right? A sculpture over there, because I've seen a lot of the shows here as well. And it also provided an opportunity to have almost kind of, I don't want to over conceptualize it, but like a backstage and a front stage, like front of the house, back of the house, right? So the choice to put the black on the wall was in response to the initial gesture of putting that. So it all very much like dominoes fell as soon as I saw this in my mind, and Tom made the suggestion that this piece would be appropriate in here. Didn't know how I was going to arrange it, but it would fit. Then that happened, and other things happened as well. So that's the first thing. And also, the way I've made it modular like this, because it is one continuous composition. I've been painting, to get to the other question, which is the manner in which it's painted in the subject matter. I have a difficult time with subject matter as a painter. I don't really see myself as a painter. I see myself as more of a sculptor. And years ago, when I started painting, I just ditched subject matter altogether, and I realized what I wanted was color and visual complexity. And I've been painting this sheet. It's a white bed sheet that I got from, I don't know, Target or something. And I wanted something with a medium thread count. It's too many threads, it falls. Too few, it's not, doesn't have enough shape to it. It needed to be very sculptural. And I realized that that's really all I needed. I just needed that fabric. So I've been painting that one bed sheet for about 8 years now. And this is one series of paintings that came out of that work. In reality, this was never meant to be installed here. It was meant to be photographed outside. So it's kind of like, you know, this is a weird application of this piece. Hopefully that somewhat answers your question.
So it is a meditation on an object.
Oh, yeah, the actual painting. Oh, yeah, it's when I paint these, they're painted in sessions probably of no longer than about an hour and a half, where I do one composition. So like I'll do that, and then I'll scramble it up. This is more applies to the one that's in the alcove over there. And then I'll come back to it, I'll do another one. And I sort of tessellate this organically together into a full composition. And when it's, you know, when the surface area is filled, it's done. So it's a very process-oriented way of working. Yeah.
So is it interpretive, or is it, gotta get that little crease, gotta get that little fold, oh, I missed that one, I'm gonna go back in.
No, I do the best. I do the best to capture every piece that I'm seeing. So I'm definitely investigating it from, like, I am trying as best I can to realistically capture exactly what's in front of me. The challenge being, there's always a challenge to it, because it's like, my implement is my forefinger and my thumb. So it's all wiped away with my fingers, right? So there's no brushes or anything. So the challenge is like, how much can I get out of that crease with this thumbnail, depending on how long it is today? And, you know, and so that's kind of the challenge of it, but it's definitely meditative, you could say.
Can you explain that process a little bit more? I assumed you were using brushes.
No, I use I'll tell you exactly what I do. I love talking about this. I get canvas, gesso, red acrylic ground. You know, I mix the red to an intensity that I like. Then I squeegee on clear acrylic glaze, and I burnish it. I want as much light to get in and out of the painting as possible through the oil. And then I thin out some phthalo blue oil with terpenoid, and I paint it on. And I only have a very small window of time because of how much terpenoid I use. This is like nerdy painter stuff, sorry. Uh, to work on it because it starts to seize up on me. So there's definitely this like pressure, like there's a time limit to the actual painting. I can only work it for so long before it's ruined. And so I have to get it right. Like there's no dilly-dallying, like I don't get to just, do a little dash here or whatever. It's like, the red is on, the blue is on, the clock has started, it has to get done. And then when I complete that composition, it's over. So that's the process as I experience it while I'm making these. These ones are really challenging because of how I have to work so fast because of how big they are. And I basically pin up the sheet on the wall next to the canvas, and I'm painting directly from like the object. Yeah, so it's an observational study.
And it's all finger painting.
It's finger painting, yeah. These two with t-shirts, so I wipe away with the t-shirt. Yeah. Yeah.
Have you thought about your act of painting as being theatrical? You said like, I imagine like the curtain goes up and you have to finish it and get it right, you get it wrong. So I'm curious like what your interest in theater is, if there is one.
I don't know if it's theatrical. I guess obviously this particular result clearly is very theatrical. It's definitely a performance. No one sees it. I see it more as like athletic, like you got to go, you got to get it done, you got to go and get it right. Athletic is kind of cheesy. It's not, it's not like, man, like at the end of it. Although there have been some paint, like the painting that I produced here in the Artist in Residence, it took about a month to do, and that's about, 4.5, 5 hours of painting a day, and it gets tiring.
You have a background in some marathon activities and stuff too, right?
Yeah,
Exercise and then like not marathon.
Exercise.
I don't know what to call it, but I feel like that theme runs throughout. Like when we were installing, it was like a race the entire time. I couldn't keep up.
That's why I like it like that.
You were here like 3 a.m. to like at least 6 p.m. for 2 weeks straight. This whole show was like an American.
I started out way long ago before the arts. I was an endurance athlete. My mom back here, she's an endurance athlete. She runs 50s and 100-mile races. And I was on the U.S. national triathlon team for a long time. I was a collegiate athlete. This is like art, to me, is like art is like, no one does art. Who does art? Like that was like not even a thing in my life. And then I was in the military for a long time in special operations, which is physically demanding. And then I got out and got my undergrad at an art school. And so I think a lot of that physicality of my work is kind of carried in, and the repetition, and there's this sort of like exacting quality to it and to certain degrees. But yeah, I definitely relish the opportunity to turn the thing that I'm doing into a kind of event that is like, I am going to leave it all on the field, so to speak, and there's nothing left there. And it was a white knuckle event this time.
Yeah, there was a crew of us, Michael Armstrong and Andrew, and I don't know who else, but we were all, I was ragged.
Good.
Yeah.
That's good.
Oh, and we were all here at the opening. I don't think anybody would ever know.
I feel
because look at this show. I mean, this is like everything's perfectly placed and I go. The whole show seems very cohesive and coherent. However, this piece in particular stands out as without trying to give away, the magic trick. I want to know more about the thought behind this piece, both in here and out there, or in there and out here. Seems like an exercise in observation.
Mm-hmm.
Out here, when you first see it, you're observing the thing itself. If you go into the other room, you're observing the observers
Mhm.
And that's kind of like, if you're in there, it's almost like you're looking back in time, the experience that you just had.
Yeah, yeah.
So even though this whole thing seems like a coherent study, this piece in particular seems as a standout, almost as if you're trying to make a statement, although I don't want to assume.
No, it's baked into all my work. I mean, like, honestly, as I'm going to be going back into the construction industry soon, but I've taught at the college level. I'm currently teaching at the high school level. And one of the things I often say to my students, I describe to them the difference between seeing and looking. And I think most of us spend most of our life looking at things, but not seeing anything. And so this out here is an invitation to sit and look and see this thing that's on the wall. But then to reinforce the reality of participation in the exercise of seeing, there's a second opportunity to see the thing through which you just looked, not knowing that you could see through it, right? You can't see through it here. But to get to there, I mean, I've seen a lot of people come in here and poke their head in and go, wow, that was weird, and then duck out, which is to be expected. You know, this is the target audience. You guys are here asking me this question, so I appreciate it. But I would say whether or not it was actually, I could have explicitly articulated the intention prior to the installation, I can see in the work this sort of like wanting to grab the viewer and be like, sit with this thing and see the work, right? And so this is the opportunity to come back and see it anew, right? The best works for me are the ones that I come to repeatedly and I see different things, right? This work, I force the viewer who's paying attention to see it, and then they see something totally new. So it's very sculptural in that regard. You go around it and it reveals new information. Like, this isn't the thing, you didn't see all the thing the first time, I guess is the way to put it. Now you see all the thing. Now sit with it, please, a little bit longer. The chairs are, I think, the benches are an invitation to like soak that in for a second. Everything is going so fast everywhere all the time. It's like, I give the analogy also with students is like, this cell phone is like, you're looking out of a high-speed train at the world. And it's just like everything is just flying by, flying by, flying by. And all of it, you're doing it yourself. You're choosing to go, this is my life. And I see it with students every day. That's my life. I'm just gonna, like a deck of cards. That's it, that's my life. You're gonna do that until the day you die. So I'm trying to like enforce like a kind of stillness, I think. And this show actually surprised me in this regard. Like, it was much quieter than I originally even envisioned it. It's very still. I don't know. I'm rambling, but hopefully that kind of got to some of your question. Yeah.
Tell me about the colorful lights.
The colorful lights.
Like the idea of threshold, it's like putting me in another world or another mindset going into the room that's red or the room that's blue, or even that dark room there. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I guess you pass through multiple thresholds in the show. Like, titling the show is such a weird thing. I prefer to have one of my former students here, applying to colleges. So there's a series that you come in, you're like, this is all, I'm not trying not to be over-interpretive, but this is all things that I understood after installing the show. You come off the street and you're in a theater, right? You come from backstage, you're an actor coming onto the stage, right? You go backstage, the show is over. You go in here, unexpecting, you're coming from this church into an actual theater, looking at a screen. There's all sorts of weird reverse Plato's Cave references that are happening in there too. But in terms of the color palette of the show, my intuition was to take the two colors that I've been working with for 8 years and just pull them apart. Because I felt like the smashing of them together was doing a particular thing, but I really wanted to see what would happen if those colors were given like architectural space. And if you got to experience them in a singular way, distinctly, and then see them like over a threshold of distance, because I knew some weird shit was going to happen. Basically, like if you go into that blue room and look into the red staircase, all sorts of weird stuff is happening to the cones in your eye, and you get magenta and purple and pink and cobalt and copper and some like turquoise and green. And then you go up through the red staircase and you look back out the natural light, and since it's just seared your eyeballs, it's just like turquoise in that intersection, that hallway up there. So I had seen the physicality, the potential physicality in these colors for years, but I didn't quite know how to explore it until I had the opportunity to like put them in architecture. And it's also like you're not only, it's like additive, subtractive color, so you're seeing the emitted light from the light bulb and the blue on the wall, and it's just like kind of, there's no escaping it in a way. So yeah, I look at this as sort of like, you go around the corner and I'm pulling apart conceptually and like physically aspects of the show down here that are very like still. At least that's what I think at this point. I just like looking down the red staircase at the blue room. I find it pretty cool. It's totally, I know. Yep.
Sounds like you're a very driven person. Do you, did you have any contemplating portion to come up with these ideas?
Contemplating?
Yeah, like you said that thinking needs to be, done quickly. I'm sure you're working like Batman, but is there any moment that you take your time to think through, or also is do you have any activities that you hate doing in your daily life?
Hate doing?
Yeah.
First question, any contemplative time. Tom will attest to this. I come in here excited, like leading up to the show, I got a different idea like every time I walk in here, right? Multiple and he's like, and he's, it's exhausting. It's exhausting for him, and I'm excited, but then I'm depressed about it because it's not going to work. And so, like every time I come in, he's like, "Okay, yeah, well, it's going to happen." Like, when are you going to? Is that really the idea this time? So all that contemplative time was like in my garage, thinking about this space, like with the floor plan and just.
And a handmade calendar on the wall.
Well, that's the logistical. It gets, yeah. Well, I needed to give myself the deadline, but I pushed this show as far to the right as I possibly could to give myself as much of that time you're talking about. And then I was like, my alarms were going off. I'm like, okay, I have to just execute this. And then what that caused was this crunch right up through the install. And then I didn't really get to experience the show until after the opening. I finished the upstairs at like 3:30, and 4 o'clock was the opening.
And you also did a residency in Japan, right? Like woodworking.
In the middle of that, yeah.
Including making these benches in the time before the install happened. These are all 2x4s that you use to make these benches. People don't even realize how you fabricate those.
Yeah, these are benches that I designed for the purpose of the show, and they, budgetary constraints required me enforce the use of 2x4s, but I also like it better than the original design. So, but I used a lot of techniques and tools from that time, in Japan. But second part of the question.
Do you have any activities that you hate doing? It's hard for you to tackle.
Oh man, yeah. Filling out any kind of government form is like death. I would rather be, I don't know, like pursued by the IRS for the rest of my life than fill out another tax form. But other than that, no, there's all the interstitial shit that we have to do every day. Like we're living through a culture of optimization, and like, it's almost like we've come to look at the things that we have to do on a daily basis as a burden, right? But in reality, like the time that I spend washing the dishes, like is like a total joy most days. Yeah, there's nothing I really hate doing.
What about as related to art? Is there anything you hate about your practice or about making art in general?
The thing I hate about making art is constantly trying to figure out how I'm going to shoehorn it into my life. It's not, I have no issues with like the things that I do, but it's like trying to make it a part of my day is like such a pain in the ass most of the time that that's exhausting for me. But yeah, all this stuff is great.
You wish you had more time to do other things, or
Oh.
you're pretty happy with what?
No. I need way more time to do stuff. Yeah.
He still manages to be an incredible baker on top of all of that. He brought us loaves of bread the other day for Christmas.
It's called bread and salt.
Yeah. These weren't a joke though. These were like artisanal loaves of bread.
Sourdough, baby.
You taught yourself to do.
Yeah.
Make a comment, like, I was on the fence of making it or not making it, with that contribution about bread and salt, like, the truth, veritas, we're both on faculty at St. Augustine High School. And so.
This is Brother Tony right here.
And yes, we have veritas, truth, and we have unitas, unity, you bring this together, and so you can't help but do, in your life, and in fact, we don't even have pews right now. Like both our chapels under construction. We're doing move chairs like these, and our big mass is in the gym. So we don't even have pews, but so you taking the work to make beautiful, smooth, like no snag, right? Yeah. Well, like beautifully fabricated with simple materials, right? So and for me, it's the relation between space and bringing the use of materials to bring us together.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted people to kind of sit, it's impossible as a furniture maker. I got my MFA in woodworking and furniture. Like if you have furniture in a show, nobody sits in it, right? They just don't. Like it's a sculpture, right? So this is like, I sit and look, right? And same with the other side. And like, it's intentional. And so when I see people haven't avoided it actually. I don't know, you spend more time here than me, but it seems like people are actually embracing that for the most part.
I think there's something that's really sweet about it being accessible from this big open door down this ramp. I've seen people having private moments here. I've seen people doing all sorts of things that you might do in a seated situation like this.
That's great.
Yeah, and then they're observing. It's something that I think is extremely accessible to the community.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's 7 churches within 5 or 6 blocks of this location. I mean, we have an Ethiopian Orthodox church. We've got a Catholic, one of the oldest Catholic churches here in the area, right down the street. What a Baptist church, right? I mean, they're all over the place. But we live in this is a very secular environment, right? This is an art gallery. It's completely secular, almost by choice. But the thing is like, no matter how I feel about, or my spirituality, let's put it that way, like I have been deeply affected by Baroque painting, like clearly, and Baroque sculpture. I mean, like that was my poor man's attempt at an homage to Bernini, essentially up there. And so it's an indelible mark on my artistic sensibility. And so like, I can't help but have, and it helps actually in the last year and a half working at a Catholic school, which clearly had an influence, but I can't help but just embrace the fact that a lot of that Baroque artwork wouldn't have happened without a particular patronage. You know what I mean? All of the subject matter in those paintings, for the most part, are of a religious nature, right? But also, I do see a very interesting relationship between performance and belief, whatever form that takes. And I think it's kind of embedded in the language here as well. Yeah, I think that's all I want to say about that. Yeah.
She won't ask because whatever reason.
It's okay.
But the piece that has the light behind it.
Yeah.
Tell us about the materiality of that piece.
That's just a painting. It's canvas, same as these ones, and it has LED panels behind it. When I was discussing initial ideas for the show, I've been wanting to make a painting that went in a window for years, and I set up little experiments at my house, and like, you know, I've got this south-facing window, and it's just like stained glass, right? And I never had an opportunity to do it. And I talked to Tom, and I wanted to put the paintings here, but he's like, no, we're not going to block out the light. We're not.
I wanted to do it forever, and Tom said
No. But here's the deal. Tom was right. Tom also said, what about this painting? Like, what are we going to do with that? You already have this. Let's do it. And so I was like, okay, a compromise. But that alcove gave me a very controlled light environment. And so there's LED panels behind there.
Did you have to paint really thinly on that?
No,
to get the right light effect?
These are as thin as you can make a painting.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's a property of the painting. It's just like this. When I was taking photographs of this, I realized, like, well, if you darken one side, you can't see through it, and on the other side you can. And so it was doing very strange things in like the monocular vision of a camera. In the same way, you know, it only takes one time of leaning your painting up against a south-facing window to realize, holy shit, that looks really cool. It's not that intellectual. It's like I really like that effect, and so I end up with a stained glass window. Essentially, is how I'm looking at it. And I also look at like that. These are bookends of what's happening upstairs. I don't want to get too conceptually interpretive, but I've pulled the colors apart, and they kind of get smashed back together, and then you come out here. And so, yeah. Yes, sir. Yeah. These are those kind of like survival blankets they give people after a marathon, or if you have like an emergency situation in the woods or whatever. They're like 25 cents. Yeah, thermal blanket. So it's silver on one side and gold on the other, and they reflect light. Like if I were to flip them, you would just see silver and be able to see through the other side. So yeah, that's all that it is. I just crumple it up. Yeah, I've been working with that material for a while. Tom mentioned it during my MFA show. Basically, just gilding the trim around a doorway, yeah, depending upon the light conditions within, I was making sculptures with this, like boxes, and I was cutting holes in it, and I was taking photographs against a backdrop of a lighted backdrop, and it would just do really bizarre things. Like that, I like photographs when I can't understand what's happening in the photograph, because it points to the materiality that the photographic image affords you, right? It flattens space. Even though it may present as like a depth, a field, it can't help but flatten space because it's a single lens. And so if I can set something up that makes the viewer confused about, it's a photograph, so I know it's of something, right? But if I don't understand what that thing is within that thinness of that photograph, that's when the photography becomes interesting to me. Otherwise, I'm a really horrible photographer. I feel like I'm good at taking those photographs, but not regular ones. I'm not so good with composition, I don't think.
There's a really great piece upstairs we haven't talked about, the avocado tree shell, the body of that tree. How did that come about? That piece is really incredible. People haven't seen it.
Yeah, it was a tree that was murdered. Yeah, avocado tree. It was like a 30 to 40-year-old avocado tree. It was about 30 feet tall, 30-foot spread. I mean, it had these Haas avocados that were amazing. And I was working in construction. It was new construction. The homeowner wanted to cut it down to put this turf next to their pool. And I talked to an arborist, I talked to the architect, and I was like, please don't cut this thing down. And then like after being unable to convince anybody, I was like, okay, but please let me just take a part of it. And so I kept that avocado tree for years, and it's like this dead body. It's got like, you know, a neck, arms, and a torso to me. And so I felt like, I don't know, I felt like this show needed a character, like a body, and like to inhabit the space, and it was just the appropriate one. But I wanted to see, like, I don't know, I felt like I wanted the viewer to see the potential of the husk of it, rather than just putting the dead tree there. So what ended up happening is, like, I needed to take off each piece of the bark and then stitch it back together. And so that was another opportunity for the wire as a material to work its way back into the show. And it almost ended up becoming this, like, weaving that tree back together with this light, you know, for me, I guess. So yeah, that's how it ended up getting into the show. Yeah.
So, part of this stuff, do you have any message for us all sitting here before you, this church rose, this space, and you want to say all together right now as a community?
Any message for you guys? Just giving me a second to think. I don't know. Pay attention. Attention is the only resource that you have. And I see people just throwing it away every day. I don't know. I'm going to hammer that drum, I think, for the next, like, 30 years until people either hear it or the world is completely destroyed. I don't know. I don't want to get fatalistic, but pay attention. And it goes back to the looking versus seeing. Like, it's almost like a kind of cliche, but things are just going to pass by you in your life, and it's your responsibility to seize hold of them. And so it's like, I actually said this to some students the other day, that, like, inspiration isn't like something that, like, is bestowed upon you. Like, you find it. It's an effortful process. At least for me, it's an effortful process. If you're waiting for something to happen to you, then, I mean, that thing that happens might be you get hit by a car and you never did anything. I don't know if that's kind of how I see life, I guess. Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about the dark corner piece, the illusion, the optical illusion? I mentioned earlier that right away I was like, that's not me.
Well, that's a very
Dark in space rather than
very generous, I don't know, connection to make there. Yeah, I installed what I wanted to do up there, and it didn't quite work. And I needed to bring some of the language from this up there. And I basically installed a runner of that theater fabric, because when you turn this corner, you really enter a theater, right? Up there, you walk right into a wall. And so it's very much it's reminding you that there's, like, maybe the illusion is only an illusion sometimes as well. That's at least the way I'm interpreting it now. It also gave a little mini stage for the tree, which I'm seeing as a figure. But, oh yeah, and it's just like a really fun opportunity to cast a shadow behind. Yeah. For me, it's the most humorous part of the show. So, yeah. Yeah.
You mentioned the figure a few times, and you know how I feel about working out the body.
I do.
I know it doesn't play into all of your work, but when it does, like, do you just see a piece of wood or a piece of material and you're like, oh, that's obviously a figure, or is there some kind of, like, premeditated thing or things that you gravitate towards more about figures?
No, I usually shy away from it entirely. I mean, I've eliminated the figure from my painting practice entirely. Yeah, I don't want to deal with it. Yeah. And so that up there is, like, for me, I say it in this environment, like, you guys are here to, like, miraculously, you guys are you're here to hear what I'm thinking, which is crazy to begin with. So up there, that's what it became for me in the show. Otherwise, I don't want to overtly put figure in front of the audience.
You don't go seeking
No.
a log that has an arm and a
Nope.
head. Okay.
that one fell into my life. I mean, the only figure that I'm cared about is your figure in this gallery looking at this work. And that's like very much like, that's why I feel like this ended up becoming kind of a stage for you to do that. I really appreciate everybody. Really, thank you so much for coming. This is awesome. Like the fact that I'm actually even standing here having a solo show and people want to come and listen to what the hell I have to say is kind of a miraculous thing. So for taking the middle of your day on a Saturday and coming here, thank you so much. Appreciate it.